we have a quorum. I'd like to, excuse me, I'd like to excuse myself for coughing. We have 2 new members as a result of the resignations of our prior 2 board members, and we're very happy about that. We have David Hansen from Trico with us. David is a native of Rochester, New York, Buffalo, New York, and but he's been here since '91, so he's a Valley boy now, and we're glad to have him on board. And JP Villarreal, thanks for joining us on the board. We know that you helped us through the initial phase of site visits on the high school, and now we're glad to have your expertise as a member of the board. And thank you for joining.
Thank you.
Yes.
What is your new job?
I'm Director of Operations for South Texas ISD.
Great. Very good. Congratulations.
Thank you.
We'll go now to item number 4, the presentation on preliminary master plan and schematic design for the new elementary school and middle school. But prior to that, we'd like Mr. Tapia to address us on some matters.
Thank you, Mr. Rodriguez. Before I bring the architects up to make the presentation, I want to give you a little background on what area we're talking about, what challenges the architects are going to have, especially with the vehicular and pedestrian traffic to the site. And I want to start off by showing you the city limits of Brownsville. Big map, the yellow areas are all annexed into the city of Brownsville incorporated. This is the river down here. And the red line is the boundary of BISD. A lot of people think the city limits of Brownsville is the same as the limits of BISD, and they are not one and the same. And the reason that's important is because this site here is at the furthest northwest part of town here. This little curve here, where the Rosaka is, that's Lakeway. I think everybody knows where Lakeway subdivision is. And you can tell that right past that, the red line, we're outside of BISD boundaries. So there's no more growth north of this area. It goes into the Fresno ISD. Even though you're in the yellow area of Brownsville, you're not in the BISD boundaries. The property that we're talking about, we're going to build a new school, they're all right here, all the bomb programs, and the high school's out here in military. And we've already talked about the high school. I don't know, maybe Dave wasn't here. We'll probably hear one more high school presentation before we bid it out. Jason's familiar with the high school is. This property here that I just talked about, Lakeway, is right here. Here's the expressway. The railroad tracks are right here. This is Alton Lord. North is straight up. Coinciding with that map. We have 3 new schools that are going to be going up. This PVC Architects is going to design 2 of the schools, elementary, middle school, on one property. That's this property right here. And that's on this map, again, right around this area.
Where is that? Can you describe the
expressway, Alton Lord? You're heading towards military, and there's one field with a whole bunch of pine trees right before you get to Ortiz Elementary. It's right across the street where the city's going to build that little semi-pro baseball park, like the White Wings.
Okay.
And they're going to do a city park. Mr. Ramos, I don't know if you're familiar if you can still do that park or not.
Correct.
That's across the street. Everything on this side of Alton Lord, they're doing subdivisions from low, middle to high middle income. I was talking to Paul Johnson earlier. He's in charge of our demographics for student population. He says that this area averages 3 kids per household. There's going to be over 5,000 people living in this general area when it's all built out. That's probably 3,000 students. Half of those are elementary kids. Yes. Oh, you want a wire?
You're being bugged.
Doing good. Number 2.
Sorry about that. We had a wardrobe malfunction.
So the important here, and I invited Mr. Chirinos, he's our Director of Transportation, is that because all these houses that are going to go to these new schools, and then there's another bond elementary that's going to be probably at the next meeting we'll hear about, that's over here. There's going to be another elementary by Genetic Architects. We'll hear that at the next meeting. But for now, we're just concentrate on these two. All of these kids here are not eligible for busing, because if you're within 2 miles, is that correct, Mr. Chirinos? And there is no major highway they have to cross, then we do not bus them. They're not required to be bused. All the developments in there are required to have sidewalks. Every time they build a house, is that correct, Mr.
Yes.
Gomez?
City ordinance.
Every homeowner, when they build, they have to build their little section of sidewalk. So once it's all built out, there's sidewalks all over the neighborhood. So basically, no busing. So all parents have to get their elementary kids, middle school kids to the site. Everybody I talk to says nobody's going to let their elementary kids walk to school, especially the little ones. So they're all going to want to drive them or hold them by the hand and actually walk. So that means everybody here is going to have to go to Alton Glore and come back around and go into the site. That's going to be a big problem. So we bought a lot right here. There's subdivision right here. All of these lots were all bought, and there's houses on every single one except for one little lot, and we bought it. That way, those kids can all walk through that one lot and access the school without going up here in front. So the challenge that we posed to the architects is, do we use that lot for just kids or for cars and kids? And then how many cars do we make drive back on Alton Glore? Because the state is also going to do a major highway here improvement with those medians. And we've already met with them, and they told us they're only going to allow us one opening. So we got to really plan, where is that one opening going to be? Because as people are getting out of here to get in, once there's a few cars waiting in, you can't even get on the highway to make that turn.
What's the width of the lot?
50 feet.
When you say the state is only going to allow you
One opening on the median that they're going to build in the middle of the highway. Like over...
So all those people, to get to their homes, there's only going to be one way to get in?
There's going to be, they can either walk down in front of the school and walk to their homes or through that one lot.
Or you can drive into the... From the neighborhood, from bushes up there, right?
Yeah.
Traffic flowing out of the neighborhood, so you only have one way to get in, one way to get out.
Well, from these neighborhoods, you have Paris Street, there's another street here, there's another street here. So you can actually drive over here and then get on and start driving and come this way. Or you can walk your kids to school.
From that point, now, what I want to concentrate on here is that if they're only going to get one exit into Alton Glore, where is the entrance a distance from there where it is to Lakeway?
It's about maybe a mile and a half.
Butch, what they're saying is they're going to have one opening in the median barrier. We could have more than one access coming off the property.
What I'm going after is getting a traffic light. And this is thing that a lot of people in the city of Brownsville wait till the bitter end to start petitioning lights. If we start petitioning for lights from the highway department now, while they're doing all these construction bits, there's a better chance that they'll be able to put it in. Now, instead of waiting a year or two into the system to say, hey, there were too many accidents.
Sure.
But if we get the housing, what do they call them, home association or
Homeowners Association.
Homeowners, people there together, including with the school district, to tell them, hey, we need a traffic light there now. Okay? Because of the situation that is down there where Iturre is and Ortiz is, it's going to be congested the same way there as it is going to be over there. That's number one. Number two, Mr. Chirino, the people that live across the street, Lakeway and that little area, some of those students are going to be going to that elementary, aren't they?
Well, what I understand is only be the students on this side.
Right. Now, remember, the boundaries I talked about over here are right here, following the Resaca. So we're not going to have any more growth on this side behind Lakeway, because that's all those Fresno.
Like people from Lakeway to get their kids to school.
Yeah, they have to go here and get in here. But the good thing also is that when we open up these two elementaries, the Ituria traffic is going to slow down, and you bus these across in Lakeway, and this is the only track left there. I think it's called the Tapatía Ranch. If they ever develop that, they'll probably go to Ituria as well. So some of the kids that are being bused here to Ituria, that'll stop, because now they got their own school.
Let me bring something up. I remember the very first meeting we ever had, and it was an informational meeting wherein the superintendent and other members of the administration, Mr. Chirinos also gave a presentation there that day. They talked about the rationale for the purchase of the lots in those areas. If you'll remember, and we all remember, there was a big hullabaloo politically with respect to buying lots that hadn't been appraised and all that. Mm-hmm. And one of the major selling points was the fact that these subdivisions were going to feed in, we weren't going to have to bus, and we were going to save about $1 million a year with respect to busing.
That's correct.
All very well intentioned. I accepted them as a proper rationale. But I remember that the BISD chief of police, Chief Garcia, showed us photographs of the extreme backups on Alton Glore.
It's right here.
Okay, my question is kind of echoing Mr. Barbosa's sentiments. First of all, my question is the only entrance to that school going to come off of Alton Glore? Because if it is, I think that's a problem, because we're going to create a second bottleneck. And why aren't we creating some type of access to the school from the interior, from the lot, from the subdivision area there? Because, I mean, I'll be honest with you, if I lived in that subdivision, I have a 5-year-old son, and as soon as he's old enough to go to first grade, if I lived there, I wouldn't let him walk to school if I lived a mile away. I wouldn't do it. And so I would drive my son to school, and what are we going to do to alleviate that kind of, it's going to be a congestion problem, even with a light. Even with a light, we're going to have a problem.
There is a lot that they bought on the interior side.
Yeah, but one lot is not going to handle the amount of traffic for elementary school and middle school.
What we've done at the Ituria.
Why don't you put the sign down a little bit so you can pick his voice, because he's not picking his up.
What we've done at Ituria, we've actually gone in there, and the first day of school, I was going over there to see, hey, you know how it's bottlenecked? It's not happening anymore, because we made an entrance and an exit, so the traffic is flowing really, really smooth. I was over there this morning, the same thing. I said, I'm going to hit it at the peak. There was no bottleneck, because people, the unloading of the students and the parent drop-off, there's now we kind of went, 2 ways coming into here and another way coming out. It used to be that we had to have a security officer, one of our own police. We're not doing that anymore, and it's flowing really, really well. I mean, so we've done some, and I think the presentation that they have also is going to bring about some explanation of how we're going to alleviate that traffic jam. But it's working the way we designed it, and we just finished accepting that the new route inside the campus for the traffic. That was the bottleneck was not outside; it was inside, getting in, and it was inside our own facilities. Now the traffic within our own facilities is really flowing really well.
We've addressed that. But the question remains, where you have an area where you just have one entrance, that is not the best alternative. I mean that's not the best in and out flow of traffic. Ideally, you would want to have more infrastructure around the school to allow for traffic to go in and out of the area, especially with school activities and other things that are going on. I mean, I just think that it just makes more sense that there's more infrastructure around the school.
The traffic flow is going to be in here, right in here. I mean, you're going to see it's right inside, not an Alton Glore, but basically it's going to be right in here.
So there's going to be other streets that are going to be able
to the school.
Right. There's some other streets that come back here for the subdivision, but most of the traffic that we're going to get for the in-house inside this corridor right here, it's going to be basically the traffic that we get from these subdivisions that the students have been zoned.
So they don't have to go to other.
And we're not going to get a whole heck of a lot of traffic coming on Alta and Glory trying to get in to drop our students in here.
Okay.
Most of the traffic is going to be inside.
And if I may add to that, Mr. Sanchez, the only traffic as far as buses are concerned will be the special need buses, and that's not maybe 2, 3. Because
Right.
that's a walking zone school
Right,
that we
and
have.
that's what I was
Mhm.
getting to.
Yes.
The next part is that all the buses that we had at, Iturria, big problem because of the busing, you're not gonna have that busing at that school. So you're gonna eliminate all the buses from the traffic. It's mainly the parents, so it's one dimension versus two dimensional. But if we can have access through this lot, maybe just for the elementaries, they're gonna come up with maybe one or two schemes. Do we allow both middle school and elementary to enter through there, or just elementary, or just walkers? And that's what the challenge was to the architects. Give us some designs. What do you think will work best in different scenarios, so we can present to the bond committee? So with that, I'll go ahead and turn it over to the architects so you can see their master plans and schemes. But you see the big picture here, and then they'll show us the design within the site.
Before you do that, is there some kind of a mechanism that we'll be able to start moving now, so they can start asking for a traffic light, through the citizens? Not because I can understand the school district going out there and asking, but it's the citizens that are going to be asking for the traffic to be able to put it there ahead of time before the school gets.
Yes, we've already met with TxDOT because they know the schools here. We went to some public meetings they had, and they want to know, once we come up with a design we like, then they'll adjust their design of that one entrance. Maybe we can argue two entrances, but we're working with them.
Yeah.
And during those meetings, we're going to be presenting the options of, can you help us out with the traffic lights? So that's something that is in the works. We do have communication with TxDOT, and we're going to be working with them on it.
Question, why just one lot that you bought? Is there any, another lot on each side?
All the other lots are built on. There are, I think people have found out what's happening here, and both lots, both houses on the sides of the lot we bought are for sale. Because if you live there, you're going to have people rushing through here, whether walkers or driving. So do we buy a lot with a house?
Why not?
That's something that maybe we can look at if it's necessary, but I want to look at the architect's design first to see if
Then you're not reduced to 50 foot.
we'll have 100 foot. That's very possible.
I would think, right
And
now,
we
if
talked
they're
about-
for sale, right now buy it, because then you'll need it and then you'll pay
And
for your
we
premium.
did bring exactly that same, that's a very good question and comment, and we addressed that with the architect, and I said, well, we can look at it, and Mr. Sanchez can talk to the superintendent, board, to see if that's something we want to do. But before we go there, we want to see if the architect solutions maybe don't require that extra lot. But if they don't, we may have to look at it as a second option. But very good point, and we did bring that up.
Thank you, Mr. Tapia. I think we're all going to move down so that we can now view the presentation, and before we do that, let me just welcome our friends from San Antonio. Thank you all very much for signing on to this project and for helping us with our elementary and middle school. We appreciate our opportunity to work with you, and we know you guys will do a good job.
Thank you. Actually, the pleasure's ours, so look forward to working on this project. And I'll wait till everybody gets down here before I get started.
This one, and then we'll have this one for the members.
Yeah. I've got one. Okay. Can everybody hear me okay? Okay. Wait, should I pick a side here? Does it matter? I don't want to split my audience here, so let's just focus on the right side if that's okay with everyone. Well, thank everybody. I wanted to start off, first of all, by introducing myself. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Joel Hernandez. I'm a partner with TBK Architects, and with me I have Eli Alvarado, who's the director of our Rio Grande Valley office. As far as this project is concerned in terms of construction schedule, as you can see, we've been working on programming with the district administration since the month of June through July and August. We'll be looking at some schematic design and design development during September and October, through November and December, and then begin construction documents. One of the things that has come up as part of the challenge, in addition to the ones that we just discussed earlier, is one of timing. And there is now an interest on behalf of the district to begin constructing these projects simultaneously, as opposed to looking at them as two individual projects as they were awarded. So the idea being is package them together, they become a bigger project, we can attract bigger contractors and probably get a better quality product. So this is the original preliminary schedule that we had developed. We'll actually be adjusting it. So what you will see happen is that this schematic design and design development get compressed simultaneously to end with design development happening at the end of October, so that we can finish in October, get our approvals, and move forward with construction documents so that we can release both projects on or about end of March of 2008. That'll allow us to bid them combined during the month of April and begin construction on both of those during the month of May in 2008. Now, as you can see, a year later, we will be finishing the elementary school, and you'll be moving in on or about June of 2009 for an opening of fall of 2009. Then construction on the site will still remain on the portion that is the middle school, and the middle school opens a year later after that, moving in the summer as well, and then you'll have a full functioning campus in the fall of 2000. In terms of our budget, we currently have a budget of $10.5 million on the elementary school. Currently, we're looking at doing a prototype of Ben Bright Elementary School. And our budget for the middle school is $20 million with an approximate program of 135,000 square feet, and we're still finalizing that as we speak. Let's look at the site itself. This may answer some of the questions that are been of concern. The challenge is obviously is that we only have a very small amount of frontage here on Alton Glory. And then we're surrounded or landlocked by subdivision over here and then by other properties on the opposite side. So as you can see, our only points of entrance into the site is at that location there where the star is, and then at this location. And this one is somewhat predetermined in the sense that TxDOT requires us to have a minimum distance here from that other road that is the exit to the actual subdivision. So there's some challenges there. As far as the sun angles, you can start to see kind of where the views are and how the buildings will be better oriented. We have a total of 44.483 acres for both those projects. In terms of studies, we did two, and these are very preliminary, so we're looking at this. The approach here is looking at it from 10,000 square feet and saying, okay, we're looking at it from above, what makes sense? What we're developing currently is a major boulevard here, essentially, that will allow entrance into here, and you'll have a split. You'll end up, basically creating a loop for a drop-off for your middle school, which is at the front, and then an extension of that will then drop off at the elementary school, then looping back around and back out. Now, the idea behind this concept is obviously to create as much stacking space, and this would be a road that's two lanes wide, and we could even divide it somehow if we needed to, so that you could stack your middle school traffic as well as your elementary school traffic separately. And we anticipate having more elementary school than we would middle school. So thus, that's why we allow this exact stacking. Now, this is also your visitor parking here. And then one of the things that we feel strongly about when we're designing facilities is to have a clear separation between your bus traffic and staff and that of your parent drop-off. So we've created a secondary entrance here that would be a loop for buses, because although we may not have the need for them now, we need to plan for the future, and we don't know how those needs may change, what things may occur, what boundaries may be adjusted. So we still want to plan for a bus loop, whether it gets used or not. The other thing to keep in mind is that from an administrative point, we can do all the planning we want. When a principal moves into this facility, they may decide, you know what, I'm going to use this as my parent drop-off because it puts me at the back of the school near the cafeteria, and it makes more sense for me, and that's the way I want it to work. So it allows for flexibility in terms of where we drop off. So if your need is less at the front and you say, okay, I have less buses, so I want to use this as a bus drop-off, and use the longer one for parent drop-off, they have that flexibility to do it. Likewise, for the elementary school, what we're proposing is a secondary entrance off that property we do have, and then allowing for a drop-off on the backside, which coincidentally leads into the cafeteria and those kinds of things. So they're perfect gathering areas, both when you're dropping off students, dropping them off, and then being able to feed them, and then boom, go into the class. Or likewise, and conversely, in the afternoon, you can use that as a staging area for your buses, so you can line up your students in an interior space, and then let them out as the buses come out. So then you can see that our playing fields are kind of combined and grouped in this back area over here. Yes, ma'am. Pete, please. Back here. Pete.
I see parking, staff parking at the upper right-hand corner.
Yes,
That's for
ma'am.
the elementary school?
Yes, ma'am.
And where is the staff parking? My vision is failing a little
The
bit.
other staff parking for the middle school is back over here.
Close to where the bus drop-off
Yeah,
would be.
the idea is that the buses and the staff probably have a better timing-wise, that they're not at the same time, whereas grouping visitor parking and bus is never a good idea because they're both trying to get in and get out at the same time. Teachers are typically there earlier and leave later, so they don't end up conflicting with the bus drop-off and pickup time.
Well, I just hope the administration takes into account that, you know, the mess we have at Iturria and Stillman Middle School.
Mhm.
It's such a bad thing that I hope this is an improvement over it. Is that, you feel that way?
That's correct. You walked in right when Mr. Sanchez was presenting that we made some improvements at still in Iturria with the buses in the back. We've improved the parking in front, and it's really solved that problem substantially. So a lot of work has to be done internally, and that's what the architects are trying to do now before we, to avoid that kind of problem.
How would the traffic flow with that? How would the traffic flow with that design? Whereas the people leaving off kids at the middle school, or the people leaving off kids at the elementary school wouldn't have to wait for the kids leaving off their kids or picking up at the middle school.
Well, keep in mind, as Mr. Tapia mentioned, when this road gets improved, there'll be a median. And what we were discussing earlier was that basically on the frontage property that we have, TxDOT will allow us one crossover into that median.
No, I'm talking about once you get into the property.
You would come in at this point here, and if you were on the, if you were a parent dropping off a middle school student, you would drop off and be on the right lane here. If not, you'd be on the left lane and continue up this way and then drop off at the elementary school.
Do we have different, schedules that will alleviate the traffic?
Right.
30 minutes?
So they're staggered. So the idea is you're not on top of each other.
What about the exit over there, where you own a lot, over at the top, right there? I only see one lane coming in, one street coming in.
It's a two-lane road, and it's actually, in this setup, it's only for buses and staff parking. So it would be one lane in, one lane out.
The people from the upper part
would
division could come in?
No, sir. Not unless administratively it was decided that, you know what, we're going to make this the parent drop-off instead of the bus drop-off, and we're going to do it that way. And that's what I'm saying, is it allows the flexibility.
Then you don't have to use Elton Door for those people, but
That's correct. I think what we were trying to do, though, is maintain some sort of order in terms of what happens here, because I think if you made that your main drop-off, you're going to have some serious stacking in that area, and the residents of that area will be pretty upset. I mean, who wouldn't be if you, every morning and every afternoon, you just had cars lined up there? So the idea is, let's not do it that way and get them out of the subdivision.
I'd like to see you try to get on Elton Door and going across, turning left from somewhere up there.
Right.
And you won't play all kinds of hell trying to get in through there.
Right.
They speak through there.
And that's why we discussed that perhaps the idea of purchasing one more or even both of those additional properties, so that we did have now all of a sudden another 150 feet of frontage towards this road over here, may be a smarter way of getting people into this property and then splitting them both left and right to the middle school and the elementary school.
Especially if it could be the safest of them.
Right. No, and I wouldn't disagree. The only point is that this is kind of where we are now, so in terms of what our opportunities are.
What is the intent with respect to the sports area and the elementary kids, are they gonna have their own separate, play area, or are they commingling with the junior high kids?
No, sir, they have their own play field.
Where is that located?
Basically, they have very minimal in terms of players. It's basically a field with some softball areas. So these areas here are more for the middle school, and we can separate them with the fence should we need to, and that's probably a good idea.
Well, my question is, where are the elementary kids gonna have the recess area?
The two fields on the right side.
These two.
There'll be a fence separating, from the school straight down on the field, is that what you're...
So it'll come down this way and then probably across.
Okay.
Yes, sir. They're on the track.
I have two questions. I'm sorry, did you answer his question?
Yes, I think so.
One question on that street that's in the subdivision. Sometimes, I don't know how wide that street is, but a lot of residents that have extra cars usually park their cars on the street.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if that's going to create an impediment of traffic, two-way traffic going in and out of that street. So that's a question that I have. And then the other question is if there was a discussion of placing a traffic light, and I just wanted to hear your response as to if that would be good or would that create other issues.
I agree. I've actually been there in the mornings, and I have seen some of the same things you mentioned in terms of people parking their cars, which is why we've kind of shied away, even though that seems a little bit on the obvious side. We've shied away from creating that as the main entrance into the site. I think what we also have to consider is that this subdivision goes on further north. So theoretically, everybody's not going to come up this street necessarily. They're going to come out of other streets and all pour into Alton Gore and find their way to this entrance, should you make it that the main entrance. So I think there's some opportunity there. The other thing, though, is if we keep this as an entrance, and maybe a secondary entrance as we're showing here, is that maybe we still provide buying those properties now and creating some sort of pedestrian walkway onto this site, so that if students are riding their bikes or if parents are walking them over there, we have a safe environment for them to get in and out without necessarily having to cross the street or a drive where cars may be dropping off other students. So those are some possibilities, but needless to say, there are some challenges to the site.
And what about sidewalks that go over the street?
Those would probably be cost prohibitive. But to answer your question, your second question in regards to the light, I think that's a great idea. It's a matter of where we put it in. I will say this, that historically in our when we've had to deal with TxDOT, is that they're very clear about what their mission in life is, and it's apparently to move traffic, and they're not that concerned with putting stoplights or doing anything that would seem obvious in terms of convenience and safety. Their idea is we need to move traffic, whatever it takes to move traffic, that's what we're going to do. So I think we need to approach them carefully, and I think once we nail down our site plan, I think a coordinated effort, as was discussed earlier, is a good plan, because it may make a lot of sense to put that light at this point here so that you can control traffic and you can get vehicles in and out of there safely without creating a problem.
Let me ask you a question. On the upper boundary of the property, are those trees or what are those?
Those are all residences right here. Those are all houses.
Those are residents already?
Yes, sir. All of these are residences all the way. The only one that isn't built out is the one property we have, which is why there's a for sale sign on each side.
Okay.
So those residents already know that you're going to build a school, and chances are you're going to dump traffic right in front of their house.
So the front of their house is on the street?
Yes, sir.
Their backyard is in our property?
That's correct. That's where the challenge becomes, so that you can see, really, you only have 50 foot of access to this street, and then over here you have this little bit of frontage, and that's it. That's your only connection to a road. So it's pretty, somewhat obvious. It's just a matter of how we want to articulate it, but really your only entrance points are in this area here or in that 50-foot swatch, unless you buy those additional properties.
I'm sorry if this was spoken about earlier, but
yes, sir.
The area in between the the two roadways there on the front, on the south portion, the southwestern portion of the, okay, but the part
Right here?
that's not ours.
Oh, right here?
What is that entire area there?
The residential
Already residential?
properties, yes, sir.
What is that red line over here, the right-hand side of it?
Right here? That's another street, so all of these are houses that back up into your school.
Why the red line?
Its name's just difficult to read up there, and I apologize for that. It's a name.
Any vacant lots in through there?
No, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Hold on. I want to make sure it's jumped in.
I guess you make the entrance to the elementary school because of that vacant lot, but from a design point of view, if that lot didn't exist and we had to purchase a house or whatever, where would you think would be the best design to enter into that area? I mean, I guess you backed up into this design because of that
Right.
empty lot. My question
It
is,
was a given. Ideally, I don't think that we could have gotten a better spot, because it kind of puts us in between here. It's a good spot. If anything, it would be nice if we were able to line up with the street, but that's not necessarily an option. But ideally, if we were able to take off one of these streets and just have it literally just drive right into our site, would have been the perfect solution. But it's pretty close. Yes, sir.
You got just two lots of this?
Yes, sir. You're absolutely right. That's why I'm saying we're not far off from being perfect situation. It's just currently we don't own that property, so we can't take the privilege of saying we're going to line the streets up and make you spend more money. That's not something we can do. But we can certainly make a recommendation. And
Yeah, that was my question. Would your recommendation be to try to purchase property to line it up with a street, or?
I think it would be nice, because if we could, then we'd line up the drive with the street, and then the additional properties that are already owned by you further towards the east would be maybe the pedestrian walkways, so that you could actually come onto the site without crossing the drive, and we'd have to work on that. But ideally, I think you'd want to have that separation between the parents or the staff coming into that side, or parents coming into that staff, and those students that choose to either walk or ride.
Chairman, are we able to make a recommendation?
I got one more for you.
I'm answering this. If for whatever reason we are able to purchase that property, then we're going to have to maintain that as a street because it's owned by the school district. We're going to get into a situation similar that we have now where we're in Hannah with that property that's there. What it is, well, you can say all you want, but that's a big argument of who's going to build it, who's going to maintain it. And that's the same situation that would create here, I believe. That's why I would direct the question to you, because you're in the
Because we own all the property, we maintain it, there's no debate. All streets in our property, we maintain that.
Okay, but this particular property is going to be a property, it's not even a street, nothing. So we're going to have to develop it at the school district. We're going to have to develop this, the drain, the whole thing that's already in place. We're going to have to go in there, we're going to have to go. So we're talking not only the saying we're going to buy the property and the house, then we still got to look into the infrastructure of how much is that going to take to be able to do it.
Right.
So that's what I wanted to wait to see. Let's find out what the whole cost is going to be, not just necessarily the purchase of the property.
There's no more cost, there's no,
Well, it's going to cost you, let me tell you.
but
you're gonna-
right now you're gonna alleviate the cost.
No, I'm not against it, first of all. Let's get that straight. I'm not against it. All I'm saying is that we need to know what the cost is going to be before we go and tell somebody, go buy this property. We recommend that you buy this property, and then we're gonna buy the property, then it's gonna cost us twice as much to be able to do the piping and the drains, it goes up with hours, to do all that, but a lot of that stuff's already been done.
If I may, Ortiz Elementary, it's almost a quarter of a mile from Malcolm Grove. We developed the whole drive, all the infrastructure to get it all the way out there. It's a long way, it's way off there, and we know that. And we've been facing those situations
from the bottom.
Everywhere we go. As a matter of fact, we got into,
That's what these, the entrance door, these right there. We built that long street, it's ours, we maintain it.
right, how long it is,
There were some, there were some right next to it. Back over here.
And, we're working, as a matter of fact, Brand Bright, since Commissioner Benavides came over to visit with us, and, we were looking at widening that street as you go in all the way to the front of Brand Bright, and having some turn-off lanes and all that, so, we understand that. I mean, but it's one of those things that strategically, that's what we need to have our schools, because we need to alleviate overcrowdedness. The growth is going that way, and we know that there's going to be growing pains as we come up with these plans, and you all have realized now that there are some of these growing pains, and we just have to take them as they come and come up with the best solution. And some of you made some really good recommendations.
Mr. Barbosa, just to have a clarification, what property were you talking about?
They had mentioned that,
This property,
the upper part right in there.
right here. We own this one.
School already bought that land.
That's correct.
An empty lot, vacant lot, and the school district bought it when they bought this other land. So we have that. And I guess the neighbors are saying, well, they're gonna do something with that property. Well, the guy who's there already put a for sale sign, because he's saying.
On either side.
The land in the middle belongs to the school district. Either they're gonna put a street, they're gonna put a sidewalk, and there's gonna be a lot of traffic there. Well, heck, I wanna sell my property.
That's exactly right.
So they put up a for sale sign on both sides of the property that belongs to the city. That was sold to the beginning.
Right.
So that's what I'm saying, that if we're gonna be able to recommend or say, let's buy those two houses, well, then the next thing, we're gonna do the same thing, hey, they bought the other one, let's sell ours or whatever it may be. There's gonna be an end to it, but I think that two of those lots are probably more than enough for the school district needs. But at the same time, all I'm saying is that, we need to find out what is that going to cost.
Are you talking about the cost to pave it?
The cost of
Because it's fairly small. I mean, it'll be 100 feet wide by 100 feet long.
But I'm saying, you're familiar with St. Luke's.
Yeah.
But St. Luke's right now, the water is still there.
Right.
Rain that happens, and that's what I'm talking about. We're gonna have to be able to do that correctly. Instead of having water there, 3 weeks before we have to rain. To make sure that, and that's another thing that we cost, to take into consideration what is it so we can do it right. Before, as a group, that we're gonna say, I recommend that you buy that property for that reason, but also to take into consideration that it's gonna cost so much to the purchase of that property. That's the only thing that I'm saying.
Consideration the expense, how much it's gonna cost. Can you give us an estimate, roughly? I mean,
No.
basically, a rough estimate.
I couldn't even guess, because we don't know what,
The one lot we do own, we're gonna build a street there already, okay, infrastructure, already gonna be there. Everything's gonna be there, it's just gonna have to be sized to those pictures.
right, and it's,
You're gonna have a payment there anyway.
But it's not a lot of paving. It's only 100
No.
feet of paving.
that's right. It's the length of the lot. You're right.
If you don't take into consideration now, but you go across the Christmas property, if you do it later, I guarantee you that.
Right.
So you put it in the plans now, if you can.
Agreed. Go ahead.
Good evening, traffic, I know, Mr. mentioned back road, that's in the Ortiz. There's no way we can alleviate some of the traffic?
No, sir, because there's a canal that runs right along the site right here. So then you start having to build a bridge or something. If I may, I do have a second option that I'd like to go over, so we can take some more questions. Just two. I was trying to get in and out for you guys. I don't want to keep you any longer. Here's kind of a different approach where we basically put the elementary school and the middle school facing each other. We have one main drive coming in that is strictly for parents or visitors. You come off and you drop off at the elementary school, or you drop off over here at the middle school, and then you end up coming straight out with parking that's shared for visitors in the middle. All of your staff and buses would come off of the neighborhood, as well as pedestrians. So you'd be able to come in the back, your buses or your staff would park in this for the middle school, pack over here, or park over here for the elementary school, and your buses would be able to come in, loop off, drop off, and then basically take off, coming out the same way they came in. And that's another way of clearly separating your bus and staff parking from your visitors, while creating basically one entry point, in and out for visitors as well as parents.
Just keep in mind that you mentioned the bus traffic, there's not any.
There isn't gonna be any, but I'm saying bus traffic in regards to,
Only when they come in and pick up kids, they can sit in the Water Center.
right. So basically, you're relegated to staff parking for those entrance points. But,
At all?
One special ed bus.
But is that a realistic assumption?
Yes.
excuse me, I think what this does, though, is should your boundaries ever change, or your population increase, or whatever else, you still have that separation to allow you to do the bus drop-off in its setup. Now, theoretically, if an administrator once again decided, I want my parents coming off here and dropping off at the middle school right there immediately, you have that ability. It's still flexible in that respect. But you keep those two traffic points separate. So, sorry? I think they both work well. I think that the first one creates some better opportunities, but this one has some nice features in the sense that it keeps the middle school. Some of the questions that came up earlier, which were very good questions, this one keeps it nice and separate. It's almost you could take a line right through the middle and say, this is the middle school, and you take the other half of the line and you say, this is the elementary school. There's something nice to be said about that. So I think in terms of working more efficiently, I think this one's probably a better plan. It also keeps your elementary school back in the back, a little bit more secure and not as much frontage to the street. So I think there's some nice things here where students could theoretically, go from one school to the other should there be an event or a speaker or things of that nature. But yet their facilities are pretty much at opposite ends. So I think this one works. Got it. But,
I have a quick question.
yes, ma'am.
Are you allowing for adequate sidewalks and a bike lane somewhere? Because a lot of these kids are going to walk to school.
Yes, and I think we would develop that once we know or get some direction in terms of which site plan we're going to go with. It'll get further developed, and the next time we come to you, you'll have that fully developed so that you know where all the sidewalks are, we know where, students are going to park their bikes and all those kinds of neat things.
I would like to add, the shape of the elementary building will not change. We're reciting Ben Bright Elementary, so that footprint of that building, that's what, you can pick it up, cut it out, and move it around how it's going to fit the scale. The middle school has a little bit of an odd shape.
That's Ben Bright.
And the middle school, we're going to design from scratch. We modeled out that one after a middle school that we saw on some of their plans that we liked, made some changes. But that shape can change to a longer plan, more square, different shapes to work there on their site. And that's something that we're not stuck to the shape of that building that we see there. We're going to massage that work and where it fits better. The elementary design is this one right here, Ben Bright Elementary.
Right. Right. And when we met with some of your administrators and principals for middle school education, we went through a whole slew of plans and kind of went through a tour of industry in terms of showing them what worked and what we've done and what is out there. I think they came with some pretty strong ideas in terms of what they'd like to see. And this plan seems to be one that worked very well for them in terms of being able to basically kind of a wing plan that's symmetrical on both sides. So you have your sixth grade, your smaller children that are making that transition from elementary school to middle school, you have them separate. And then you stack your 7th and 8th grade on the opposite side. And then all of the common spaces fall in between. So all the shared spaces are pretty much in between them. But you're able to keep your smaller children protected at least for one more year until they make that transition to the 7th and 8th grade.
The 7th and 8th grade would be a two-story structure.
That's correct.
Everything else would be one story.
That's correct. So it's a very effective plan, and I think the administrators felt pretty excited about how that worked and that it allowed them to provide even from a curriculum standpoint. Yes, sir.
Getting back to the previous slide that you showed,
This one?
the parking. Have you noticed being out there, whether the houses is a two-car garage or is it a single garage?
I want to say single, but I'm not 100% sure. It's been a while since I've been out there, but I want to say they were relatively small homes with a single garage.
The only thing negative that I would see in here would be if the buses are coming out and they're parking on the side of the street, for them to turn into that street. That would probably be the only.
We don't have buses.
Well, you're gonna say no buses. You're still gonna go on field trips, you're still gonna go
Right.
take it and get somewhere, the buses are gonna come in, they're gonna come into that area. And all I'm saying is that the school is gonna take a field trip to the zoo, it's gonna take 3 buses to come pick up the whole thing, and if a car is parked right at the exit and you can't make that turn, it's gonna make it difficult. And that's the only.
Right, and that's why, once again, the availability of those 2 additional properties in each side, even should you choose not to widen the street or do those kinds of things that we're talking about, I think the opportunity is one that the district should probably consider strongly, because even if you owned them and we raised the homes and we just left it natural grass and didn't develop it, that's fine, but if the need ever came or the need for buses, changed and whatever else, and now we do have 10 buses showing up, you would have the ability to widen that road, widen the turning radiuses and all those kinds of things and not affect you in any way, shape, or form, as opposed to being landlocked. Yes, sir.
Why can't you put a city ordinance in park there in certain hours on the street? To be done.
I'm sure you could do that, because some of those things.
It's done in other cities, I know for a fact.
Yes, sir. And a matter of fact, that would change along with the speed limits and the crosswalks and all those things. So I think those are all potentials, and the district certainly has a lot of a good repertoire with the city in terms of trying to get some of those things done. So.
I have a question.
Sir? Yes, sir. They both have the same number of spaces. Now, they're just kind of blocked out, but at the end of the day, they would have the same number of spaces, one planned to the other. So, but as I mentioned earlier, since these schools are staggered, you're able to have a little bit more efficiencies when you share your parking, and they're basically the same distance from one facility to the other, yet you don't have to double them up. You don't have to have 2 visitor parking, you only have 1. And it allows you to have a bigger one that is shared by both facilities. So in terms of that, it's pretty efficient.
How many parking spaces are
I don't remember. I'd be guessing if I gave you a number. Maybe around 100. Sure, this could get deeper, and there's a number of things. This is more to show concept and the idea in terms of which direction we're going to follow. Once we get a direction, then it'll get developed a lot further, and the next one will show parking counts at each one of those lots, give you an exact count of how many spaces there are for each one of those. This is still kind of just a big picture concept.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
On the traffic flow, I guess, from this concept to the other concept, I guess the only comment that I have is, as long as you have a backup plan for your bus transportation, if there's going to be ever a need, that they could come through this other entrance, I guess, as to be able to flex, one entrance to the other entrance, so that way you're just not set in stone that that's the only entrance that the bus would go through.
Yes.
And then the other comment is, on the main entrance from Alton Road, would you consider a 3-lane? I mean, it looks like an airport type of thing, and
it does.
My experience at airports, you have 3 lanes, and I just didn't know if 3 lanes is too cost prohibitive.
I think we would do 2, and then at some point here, much like you see at shopping malls or at the airport, is it turns into 3 lanes as you get closer to the exit, so that right turn only is pretty clear, and then you'd have basically 2 turning right and 1 lane to turn left, because the left one is the one that's going to slow everybody down, because they have to wait for this traffic to stop. They have to have a clear opening, whereas the guys turning right may not necessarily, as long as there's a lane open. So we would probably have 1 left turn only and then 2 turn right to help expedite that in and out of traffic. To answer your first question, though, is that, yes, I think if you just took the idea of these are merely drop-off points here, and then these back ones are here and here, even though they say bus loop, and you just look at them as drop-off points, they could be used interchangeably. You could decide, we're going to make all our parents come through here and drop off on the backside, and we have the little few buses that we have, we're going to make them come to the front. You could certainly do that. It's flexible in that respect. I think some of the other concerns that came up earlier in regards to the TxDOT issue is that This allows you to have a little bit more gap between that intersection over here that's already established, and if we're going to have one entry point, is have that cutout here, as well as petition for that light to be there, because then you can really move traffic. If parents are coming in from over here on this neighborhood and coming down, they could all stack up, and then once they get the light, everybody gets the green light to go in, as well as the green light to get out. I think would be very effective, rather than the other one that had several entry points as well as the one on the top. So this one is a bit more concentrated, but I think it offers the most efficient way of organizing your site, both from, like we mentioned earlier, a curriculum standpoint by keeping them separate, as well as organizationally and from a vehicular standpoint. There is no option 3. Unless you want an option 3, we'll come up with another one.
Question.
Yes,
The
sir.
elementary, they don't have on the playground. The only thing they have 2 baseball fields and that's it?
They'll have the same playground facility, the hardscape that we have at Ben Bright and those kinds of things. So it'll be identical to Ben Bright. I don't know if it's shown on that. There's a hardscape. See, here's the plan. There's the gym, and then there's a hardscape area there with some basketball courts and things of that nature.
If anybody wants to go see the elementary we're going to build, then Bright, if somebody hasn't seen it, we can just call me and I can set up a little field trip and take you guys so you can see the school. It's going to be exactly what this school's going to be.
There's a picture of it from the outside. That's the front entry point. Does anybody else have any other questions or concerns?
If there's no more questions, I want to thank everybody for their input, because all this is very valuable, all your comments, your concerns, your questions. We'll take all those as feedback and input to the architect, who will then go back and rework this, try to address some of your concerns, and try to come up with maybe another solution to improve these plans.
Not so much a question, but for process issues. What is the district going to look at from this committee with respect to plans, site plans, and the manner in which this is developed? And by that I mean, on the high school plan, they drafted their plan, they showed us our plan, their plan, we just said, oh, it's nice, and they went forward. With respect to this one, I mean, we have 2 options here. Are you going to want us to make a recommendation to the school district with respect to one option over the other, which is one of the reasons why I think Mr. Zayas asked, what option you prefer? I'm just asking a process question as to what you all are looking for us.
I would wait until we also have the facility committee of the board, and we make the same presentations to the board. Then at that time, since you've already previewed the same presentation, and we'll invite you to at the facility committee meetings, because you've already reviewed and have some really important points. You can show up there and voice your opinion. I think that would be the best thing to do. But right now, Mike, to make a recommendation without them having an opportunity to visit, I would say.
I'm sorry, and now it's, okay. I wasn't going to accept any motion to make a recommendation today from any of the members of the committee. It's premature, I agree. I was just asking for our next meeting.
I think
that they have an October line. So for our next meeting, what are we going to need to prepare ourselves to do? And so I think we heard from Mr. Hernandez that you all like option 2 better than option 1.
Yes, sir. I think.
At this point?
At this point, yes, sir. And I think to answer your question, if you look at the 2 projects, Ben Bright's kind of a given. There's nothing to look at. The plan is the plan, and we're just repeating it. The middle school, I think we've gotten some great input from some of the principals, and they have very strong opinions of where we're heading. So I think that one, within the next couple of weeks, will be pretty much set as well. So really all that's left is, how do we want to organize it? What are the concerns that you as community members see as potential problems that we need to be sure we take care of?
With respect to the design of the middle school.
Yes, sir.
And excuse me if I didn't catch this the first time. Did the design of the middle school change from option 1 to option 2?
No, sir.
It's the same?
Yes, sir.
It's just the location and the setup on the site plan?
Yes, sir. And that's not fully developed. The plan you see up there right now is a little larger than what the square footage budget allows us to have, but we're working with staff as well as some of your administration to make sure that we get it within the budget. But more importantly, the organization and the concept of the overall plan is what was important, and I think we've got that down. And there's some ways that we can trim out some of the fat.
I know there is one thing that we are tasked to do, and that's to watch the money that's spent on the bonds.
Absolutely.
The budgetary issues are going to be a big concern to this committee. I can just tell you
Absolutely.
that from the get-go.
No, they're a big concern to us as well, and we pride ourselves in making sure we get it in there, so.
Well, that's why I'm saying, when we bring the facility committee of the board, you all come in and you're invited, and then we invite the administrators. We have some experienced administrators who have been participating in the design of the facility, and when all the meeting of the minds take place, I think at that point, rather than voicing our separate opinions, I think you voice them all in one meeting and sit down like we've done on other issues. We know we have an employee committee, insurance committee, and we bring both the insurance committee of the board and the employee committee. There's a lot of good discussion going on, and I think that'd probably be the time, because what we pay for the lot versus paying for a home is tenfold. Okay, and then what are you going to do with that home? Some people say, are you just going to tear it down? You're going to raise it and you're going to build a 100-foot drive? Are you serious? Why don't you guys sell it? You can't sell a brick home and move it. And so there's some other issues leading to that discussion. So there's a lot of questions that are going to be coming forth, and while you all have one view, I'm sure the administrators at the campus who are there all the time, and they see all the traffic flow problems, and they see the parent problems, and all the problems within the hallways and all this, when they get to see all this information themselves for the first time, I think, they're going to have some insight also, and I think some of the board members and even our superintendent and some of the other administrators may also have something to say. So we're not done. We're in the first quarter. We got 3 quarters to go.
Excuse me, I've seen it time and time again that you wait around and you don't do it when you need to do it, and it costs you tenfold. Now, if you go down there on Central Boulevard and Boca Chica, you see those apartments being torn down. Right and left, they're leveling down the thing, and they're going to put a big Walgreens complex there. Now, I don't think that anybody is going to challenge you're buying a lot in a house or 2 lots in a house, 2 houses, to alleviate the problem that you will eventually have if you don't do it now when they're doing the plans and whatnot. I think it'd be crazy not to do it. Thank you.
My recommendation is that the architects and the design and the infrastructure, they understand this better than we do. And I think that the recommendation is if the design makes sense for the purchase of the lots, then I think at that point in time, the cost of buying the home versus the benefits that are derived to complement the design is such that it makes sense, then I think that this committee should understand that and vote in favor of that design if that's what makes sense.
If I may add a good question on the process, the next step is we're not going to pick 1 or 2. We're going to come up with option 3. I was joking earlier, but really that's what's going to happen. We're going to take the best of both, plus your comments, and come up with 1 plan, and that's it. It's going to be based on your input. That's why we're having this meeting. Right. And even then, we'll look at that one last plan and say, let's make one last little change, but we'll be down to 1 plan. I also have a committee, administration principals, met with the band director and the band hall, the choir, maybe the PE coach, the librarian, the nurse. We meet with all those people, maintenance, communications people, bus people, security people, police department. We meet a lot of people that have input to get with on the design of the floor plans and the nuts and bolts of the buildings. So that'll be the next step. So the next time you see it, there'll be 1 plan, and it'll probably look like the one you all like with some changes. And don't present it to the facilities committee. I probably will want to see it next, but they're going to have the benefit of this committee already narrowing down the concept of better improved plan by the time it gets to the facilities committee. So it'd be good for you to go to that meeting, and then we'll bring it back to the next month so you can see what
If you didn't get a chance to go to the facilities committee, we'll bring it back here and update this committee how that design's going.
Correct.
Any other questions? Then we may want to recess here, go back up and finish the rest of the agenda.
Thank you for your time. Thanks. We do, there's some kind of formulas that you can use that are kind of good rules of thumb that our civil engineers actually use when they do their planning. Right. The other thing that, our administrator pointed out when we were looking at these, that allows us to really hit two drives and secure it in case of an emergency. So everybody looks at it a little bit differently. Some people want a lot of access, others want to minimize the access. So, right.
Mr. Leal.
Continuing the meeting after the presentation, go into any old business that we may have had. Anybody can think of anything? We certainly like to thank you, Mr. Hernandez, for the presentation very well. I think that we're, at least personally, I think it's all exciting, getting things done and being able to find some of these adjustments that we have to do. And I know you've been doing it most of your life, so it's kind of easy for you to do it, but sometimes we just get a little bit excited about something that may be minor to you. But certainly like to appreciate you and your staff for the work that you're doing for the school district. And we'll certainly look forward to seeing you again, probably in a short time.
I'm sure.
Okay, then we'll go into any new business that we may have. Oscar, do we have anything coming up, or?
No, I just wanted to go over the changes of the two bond members, but we talked about that at the beginning of the meeting already, so I don't think there's anything else talk about it this time.
Okay, we'll go into the public comment. I don't think there's anybody wanting anything to say or do. So I guess we can discuss as far as our next meeting. I don't know, when is I guess we would recommend that we go to the facility committee. When is that scheduled for? Do you know offhand, or?
There's none scheduled at this time.
Okay.
The board, the chairman of that committee, which is Mr. Powers, I believe will get with superintendent and call meeting, or the superintendent can call them and say, hey, we have some things we want to show you, let's go to our meeting. So when that comes up, I'll advise you immediately.
Okay, if you can just email us or let us know when you have that meeting so that we can automatically attend the meeting and participate in it, and see what will develop.
I'd like to add one more thing to the item conversation here. We talked about the last time we used to meet at the police department in front of Hannah, and there was some comments made about our camera crews having to bring everything, cameras, wired, and set up. So it was suggested to have the meetings here because they have cameras mounted on the walls in the middle. They have their sound booth and cameras up there, so they don't have to bring anything, just set up these little mics here. But now that you've experienced the next 4 months are going to be football games Thursdays, do you think this is a good place to have a meeting based on what you've experienced tonight? You want to keep having meetings here, or you want to recommend that we go back to the police department in front of Hannah?
I don't know if anybody has any comments on it or like to say something on it.
Well, I didn't have any difficulty getting a parking space or getting access here, so I don't know.
Today. I think just getting another access into the parking lot other than off Elizabeth.
Unless you have a designated parking area for us.
We could come in the backside.
Where's Oscar? I mean, do you have any problem? And I know that. I mean, we parked all the way over here. I don't know how the situation would be right now where.
That's something that we can look into. This was, until we experienced this, we really didn't know how it was going to work. But what happens is that right at 5 o'clock, there's hundreds of people that work in this building. It's an administration building now. It's not a school. And we have a partial school next door that Falk is sending some students to until we finish a wing they got. But that's going to turn into a Brownsville Learning Academy, so it's still going to be a school. So around 5 o'clock, everybody starts rushing out. So if you were coming in, you were fighting the traffic that was going out. right after you're coming in, then now there's a rush of people coming in for the football game. So there's a little gap there of traffic outgoing and incoming. You're getting caught in the incoming, but they're rerouting people here and there. But maybe we can talk to Chief Garcia. We can give you maybe some special tags and let all the officers know that if you're a bond committee member, maybe we can designate space for you. We'll talk to the superintendent about that. So we can work those logistics out. You want to continue meeting here?
Well, it's the cost of having the meeting here and having to deal with the logistics of the traffic versus them setting up at the other location, right? So, I mean, whichever makes sense. I mean,
to me, it really wasn't that bad at all. I didn't experience anything. I drove in, they knew that we were part of the bond committee meeting, and I found a parking space, so to me, it wasn't a problem.
Dr. Cisneros is in charge of the TV station, and can you give us some input if this works better for you and your staff, or is it a big problem carrying everything over to the place in front of the house to set up?
There's less time setting up here because 2 of the 3 cameras are already mounted, part of the electronics. The only thing that did throw us up a little bit for a loop was the fact that they came down and the screen was over here. So logistically threw us off a little bit today. If we set up the screen, we'll be okay here.
Oscar, why not just go ahead and communicate with security or Mr. Gonzalez, and maybe they could reserve a space for us and give us a check, and that would say everybody should be happy. So they can have less work.
Okay.
So, Dr. Cisneros, you prefer to have the meetings here?
With respect to manpower, it's less here, sir, because there's already electronics built in. Or over there at the police department, we actually have to set up everything.
More manpower.
And you're talking about maybe an additional an hour to an hour and a half of having several staff members operating. That's when we get there. We still have to go in the process of transporting. Here it's already in place.
I didn't have a problem.
One other option could be to set up the tables up here front and sit down here, and nobody's up on the stage other than the screen.
I see no problem.
Sit up where Lucy is right now. That's another option. That's why we do our workshops over at the Civic Center.
I know the one thing that that most of the members of the committee have been asking for is what's the easiest for the school district to hold these meetings, and I think what we're hearing is that this is the easiest in terms of manpower and logistics, and so I'll entertain a motion to continue to have our meetings here.
I so move.
I'll second.
We had a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Just to get a date for the next meeting.
Well, the date for the next meeting would be, are we through with new business and public comment? Our meetings are set. They've been set. It's the first Thursday of every month. So the first Thursday of next month will be the 4th. The 4th? October the 4th at 5:30 here at the administration building. If there's not anything else, entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting's adjourned. Thank you.
For those of you that didn't eat, we got some Subway sandwiches, chips, and Coke, and fruit.